This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome.
Hello, metalheads. Appreciate you jumping on today. I love being able to do this show. I love getting the feedback. I love hearing from people. I've had some really good episodes lately that have gotten a lot of feedback, and I appreciate it. So anytime you feel like shoot me a message, liking, sharing, all those things, I really appreciate it. Just a lot of gratitude here for this podcast and my ability to do this. It gives me so much to be able to talk to such amazing people about this mental toughness, but then it also does a lot for me to be able to share that with others and knowing that I'm helping individuals, I'm helping coaches, I'm helping teams, and just helping them enjoy athletics. And I can't thank you enough for tuning in and liking and sharing. And as you do so, just remember this is a free resource I give out for everybody to listen to. But as I do that, just keep in mind the services that I do provide, because this is a free resource I put out, but this is also my business in this mental coaching that I do. There's a few ways that you can hire me to work. Of course, I work with individual athletes. I've worked with that from ages 8 years old all the way to now I'm working with some pro athletes. So every age in between. I do team coaching. So if you are a coach and you want me to work with your team and some of these concepts, I got some team coaching that I do, and we do it virtual. Works really well. I love that if you get these ideas as a coach that you can implement them into your practice and use them, and I grade it, and I want you to do that. But I also know that you get to be white noise, and then also it's nice to have a different voice. So I do sessions with teams. It works really well. And also, if you're out of school, consider me for professional development. I do a couple types of professional development. I do one series, 100% Metal series is for all educators. So I go in and do keynote speaking to an entire staff, but I also do that same series for small group coaching that I do virtual. And I also have the Ember to Inferno process program it's a process for coaches to help learn how to develop mental toughness in their athletes. So that's a professional development thing I do with just coaches. So just keep those things in mind as I put this podcast out here, that I'm doing this because I do this for the good of everybody in athletics, but I'm also doing this for a business too. So if you enjoy what you're seeing and what you're hearing, just remember me whenever you're looking for some professional development, or an athlete that needs some help, or a team that you want me to work with. I'd love to hear it. So, but let's get into the podcast today. I've got a really good one, really good, successful coach. His name is Dave Witzig. He's the head coach for the boys basketball team at Normal Community High School. He's been there several years. As you're going to hear, he's got 32 years of coaching experience. A lot of really good stuff from Coach Witzig here. So I'm just going to jump into it and let the conversation go, and I'll talk to you a little bit on the backside.
Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching.
And welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I'm here with my guest today, the head boys basketball coach at Normal Community High School, Dave Witzig. And I always, and Coach, your response when I ask you to be on the podcast, I get this all the time. Coaches will always say to me, "Well, I guess I don't know what I was going to talk about. I don't what I have to add or to share or stuff like that." And then usually when I get something like that and then I follow it up by asking them about their resume, I find out you've been coaching 32 years. You've been at Normal Community for, you've been a head coach for 25 years. I don't know how long you've been at Normal Community, but your record is 520 wins and 238 losses. And you were elected to the IBCA Hall of Fame in 2022. But I'm sure, Coach, you have nothing useful to share with any coach that, and I'm being facetious, but it's good to be humble, I guess.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that. I mean, you've had Allie Ince, who's Normal Community's greatest athlete, who's going to Oregon. So, I mean, you've had some high people, college coaches, but yeah, I'm glad. I'd love to talk coaching and work with kids, and so look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, I think that's a misnomer about the podcast is I love to have big name guests on here like that. But what I find out is I get some really good tidbits from coaches who are just starting and who have, like, I've found that just about every coach, every athlete has their own take on stuff, and we can all pull pieces from different individuals on how we can do things differently or better, or even if we're like, I'm not going to do that. Right. Yeah. And speaking of which, and this is something I mentioned to you, is one of the guests I had on one of the very first ones is an assistant of yours now. John Hughes has been a friend of mine for a long time. And I think that's a great way to start, the fact that you and he are both really good basketball coaches, but you're as far as I know, you're as different as night and day on the side of a bench or on the side of the court. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Coach Hughes came to our school a few years ago, and he's been an unbelievable addition to our staff. And I'm lucky. I have a great coaching staff of players. Nate Foster is our golf coach and helps me out, and Matt Schweinberg, a former player. Conte Nix is from Champaign, used to be head coach. He's on my staff. I have a very diverse staff. Ryan Short's our head baseball coach, is on my staff. And we're all about the same age. I'm the oldest one by a little bit, and but it's like big brother and little brothers. And Coach Hughes is very fiery, and I've heard from his former players how he was on the sideline. And I'm pretty calm, just kind of more of a grinder, and we're just going to kind of just keep working. So we've had some great conversations about how to coach different athletes and doing things. So he's been a huge help.
Well, I think that's a key thing. Having a good staff and having a staff that complements you is probably a really key to success.
Right. And I think my staff, they're not afraid to give their opinion. I know there's people that are yes men and things like that. And sometimes I tell the guys, you guys could be a little more agreeable at times. You don't have to disagree with everything we're doing, but we have very open and honest discussions, and it's been really good for me to deal with them and their expertise. And John Hughes is one of those guys that he'll say to me, he's like, I wouldn't have done it like that, but I see what you're doing. And so we've had some great conversations, late night phone calls, late night bus rides. It's been great.
Yeah, it's you have to look at things differently. You got to have people that call you on stuff and change things. But I think that's the thing, is you do have to be true to yourself and you can't fake coaching, I don't think.
Right. And I've definitely evolved. I was definitely a hothead. I actually started my coaching career at DMAC High School my first year. That's one of the connections John Hughes and I had. I was a JV coach under Scott Cruzy. And I was very competitive and sarcastic and demanding, and I've evolved and tried to learn how to be a better coach, the players that I have and the culture that I want to have. And so it's definitely changed. I want to win. I'd love to win. We have won. And I just feel like I kind of like the way we go about doing it. We're just going to kind of keep grinding out and keep working and stay patient and keep teaching.
Yeah, I'd love to hear if we're talking 32 years of coaching and 15 or 25 as a head coach. And you mentioned that you like the difference between you when you first started. And part of that is just youth, right? But there have to be moments, like key moments, that led you to believe I need to do this differently. And because this part of what I do on this podcast is getting people to change their mind about the way they're coaching and doing things. And if you can point out some things that, like, here's what got me to change my mind and what I've changed, I'd love to get some insight on that.
Right. Yeah. I have a couple of things that when you say that, one of them is my wife is an art teacher here at Normal Community. And so the basketball coach, history teacher, married an art teacher. So it's not a total, it's not like an art teacher is big into sports. She's from a family of 4 girls. Great family. They like the outdoors and they like to do things like that. But when we were married and I became the head coach, there were times where we had to really work on like how we're going to go about doing this, because you spend a lot of time. We have 4 kids. The oldest is 24. The youngest is still in high school here. And a turning point for our relationship, we had 2 major turning points. One of them is when she and I and our young kids took some of our players out to eat who didn't have very much of the time. And so we sat there and we ate at one of the restaurants in Bloomington Normal, and she got to kind of get to know the 2 basketball players that were with us. And when I dropped them off and we were driving home, she said, I kind of get it now. It's not just about basketball. She started to live the life with these guys and seeing what we're going through and what we're trying to teach. So that was a big turning point for her, where she understood just about the coach's life and what we're trying to do. It's not just about the sport we coach, which sometimes I know younger coaches get out because they're starting families, but we found our families being involved with the program have been a great for how we've grown up. Our kids have grown up in the gym. The other thing, this is the turning point. I said this story at the IBCA, and I'm embarrassed to even say it now, but in the year 2002, I had a great basketball team. We had not won a regional yet. We had a really good team, and I had a baby girl in December. Her name's Grace. She's now a senior at Eastern Illinois. She got really sick in March, and she had RSV, and she actually had to be, the day of the regional championship, she had to be lifelined to Peoria, from Bloomington Normal to Peoria. They just needed better equipment. The doctor said she's not going to die, but we need to get her soon. And Matt, I'm embarrassed to say this, but my wife and I drove over to Peoria. I got them settled in Peoria. Everything was fine, but then I went and coached a basketball game. And of course we lost. To this day, I cannot remember very much about what happened. It was Jeremy Crouch was on the Pekin team. They beat us that night. It was a really bummer of a night. I don't remember what happened. My mind was all over the place. And a couple days later, my wife and I talked about, like, we got to figure this out. It can't be like this. You can't leave your daughter in a hospital to go coach a basketball game. And so we had 2 kind of things about the same time. Her understanding that it was more than basketball with the guys I'm dealing with, but it also understanding, like, hey, we're raising a family and a daughter's in a hospital. What are you doing at a game right now? And so I had to I apologize to her. Once in a while it comes up. We still talk about it. I apologize to her every time. Like, I left her at the hospital to coach a game that I shouldn't have been at. So I think those are things that kind of turn my coaching around. That has to be about my family. It has to be about making the team a family. And we just got to make sure we keep it in proper perspective. So another guy that really impacted me was Greg Popovich. When he said that we're going to come and play hard, we're going to practice for 2 hours, and then we're going to go home with our lives. I really liked his attitude he had with those Spurs teams about working really hard, playing hard, and then go home to your family and do something different. And those are kind of things I've tried to do then.
Yeah, I think that I love the story. I mean, I don't love the story for you because I get it, but I think that is it can be that old school mentality. And there's probably a fair amount of people that coaches and in the sport that probably applauded you and be like, man, that guy's tough, right? He's tough and he loves his team and he does that. And then, and I get that perspective, but then at the end of the day, it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? What am I doing?
Right. And what I remember about that going into that game, and the reason why I wanted to be at that game is at that point, Normal Community had not won a regional for like 12 years. And we had a really good team, and people were saying this is really a great chance, or maybe the only chance in years to do this. And so I had this thing that winning a regional was the most important thing. I just really lost my head. And like I said, I don't remember much about that basketball game at all because I was just so out of it. And then after that, we kind of got my work life figured out and how we're going to do our family with this stuff. We've actually had a ton of success after that of doing well in the state tournaments things. And so it makes you wonder, like you want to win so bad that you can't really win. And then you realize you put it in perspective and you realize having a better perspective maybe will even help you win.
And I've said this before in this podcast, and I don't have the great answer for it yet, but it's like, I don't really know what the key to winning is, but I know it's not just focusing on winning.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I was sarcastic and I wanted to win and then realized I don't know, some of those guys from those years, looking back, they probably didn't have very much fun and lost respect for me at different times, just the way I handled things. And so we always say in 20, 30 years, no one's going to remember my record or those kind of things, but I want to pour into those guys that they're good men and husbands and fathers and doing their work in their community.
Well, yeah. And I don't know. And then you start thinking about when you're talking about raising young men, which is what, like, it's not just about basketball, it's raising men. Back to that story, you have to be like, what was I really teaching there? Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And I left the game in Pekin and drove back to the hospital, and there's just a hugely empty feeling. And it's like, this is bizarre. This is crazy. You know, if we would have won, would I have felt better? If we lost, I mean, I just, I go back to this little baby in a the tubes running out, and it was just something to really think about. And I, you read my career record, and I'm very proud of that. And it's all at Normal Community, which is great. I love being here. And for coaches out there who their records maybe, don't have as many regionals or wins or whatever it is, we are such an important position right now at this stage in the high schoolers' lives and just kind of the life of our country, just the way things are going. We need leaders and people to stand up and tell the truth and those things. So that's why with John Hughes, I keep telling him we just need to keep grinding.
Yeah.
Coach Hughes is great because he's ready to kick him out of the gym. And I've said we're gonna keep going. We're just gonna keep going and keep going, things like that.
Yeah, I think I think that, and keep grinding can get the wrong idea as well too, because I think that, I mean, again, since I feel like we're just beating up on Hughes here, because he's a great guy, but I mean, he's a grinder. Like, he works and works and works and wants his kid to work. But you're talking about it doing it a different way. It was like, hey, we're just going to keep at it. We're going to keep grinding very positive, right? And not worrying about too much, like when things are going wrong and things like that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw my team play last year, but we had an unbelievable amount of talent and height. But we played Metamora this past year, early February, and they took us to the woodshed. The score may have been closer to what it is. They completely outclassed us. And I remember the coaches were like, well, we're probably not going to go anywhere this year. We're not going to do anything. And we're all mad. And that was Saturday night. Got up on Sunday, went to church, kind of reflected, like, no, we're going to be fine. We're going to watch film. We're going to watch the 5 plays we need to work on. We got Sunday to kind of regroup, and Monday we're going to come to practice, and we're going to talk about the 5 things we want to do better, and we're going to head to practice, and we're just going to get going. We're not going to pound them on this game. We're not going to just keep bringing it up. It was disappointing. It was in front of a huge crowd. Metamora's whole town was there, and it was awesome. But we deserved to lose. They played better than us. But but the first thought on after the game is like, throw in the towel. This team's done. We're done. We're not going to go anywhere. What's funny about it is we kind of learned that in the locker room before we got there, the players started talking to themselves, and they decided they needed to make a change too. And so sometimes losing games and getting embarrassed is the best thing for your group. It doesn't feel good, but it's good for you.
Well, it's the comparison there is your moment, with your daughter and your wife, and then that moment and that tough loss to Metamora is a lot of times we leap forward from the not the best moments, from the worst moments, right? Like I'm sure it's an awful story that you apologize to about your daughter, but it's probably such a long lasting memory that it shapes it changes your entire trajectory coaching forward, that if it had not happened, you maybe not have changed the way you did.
No, you're exactly right, because there was a process of weeks that we were talking about, my wife and I, after that horrible loss in Pekin in 2002, about what we wanted our life to look like, what we wanted to do. And so, like I said, I apologized. And then it was just, we had a couple weeks, and we went out on a date. Her parents watched the babies, and we really sat in the driveway and talked a long time. How do we want our life to look at this moment? And it, I don't know, it was just really good. I have a great wife. Like I said, she's not from the sports world. Sometimes she's like, hey, it's just a high school basketball game. Can we move on? But I've learned a lot, and we're in it together too. Like you talk about, you grind out your basketball season, you grind out through your marriage and raising kids and doing those things. And so, you're right. When I look back at my coaching career, that was a moment. If those things didn't happen, I might have been down a burnout path, a super sarcastic path, a negative path. And those are things I feel like I really grew from.
Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Parents of athletes know that confidence and belief are fundamental for success. We want them to play without fear and without anxiety, but once those negative thoughts take over, it can derail years of work. Turning that anxiety into belief is similar to building strength and speed. It just takes intentional effort over time. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete.
Yeah, I think I love the idea there when you're talking about what we wanted our life to look like. And that's something as a mental coach now, that's one of the main important things that I stress to people. Like if you're wanting to change something, and this works for an athlete, it works for a team, it works for a marriage, whatever. You're like, hey, I don't like the way I am. I don't like the way we are. You have to figure out where it is you want to be. You have to, even if you fall short, you have to have intentional objectives on what you're trying to work on so that you know if you're getting there, you're not getting there. And I think a lot of people they skip that step. I'm going to keep working and do this, but they don't know, well, what am I aiming for? I'm at point A. What's my point B, and how am I going to know when I get there? And so I commend you for that, because I think it's a step that a lot of people skip. like I said, for their team, for their marriages, for their life.
Right. We kind of what we came up with then is Normal Community. I'm sitting in our school that's been built around 2003, and so we kind of made the choice. We're going to move out near the new school, which is on the edge of town, northeast side of town. And we're going to move in a neighborhood out there. We had a couple kids at the time, and 2 more are going to come later. There's a great school in that neighborhood. We're just going to kind of plant our flag at Normal Community. My wife was staying at home, and now she's back here at Normal Community. I have a brother, Matt, who's a missionary in Asia. He and his wife have gone to Asia, and they're Christian missionaries. And so sometimes I'm like, man, he's really doing something incredible. And then we kind of realized part of our conversation during this time was like, well, my calling is to be a basketball coach and history teacher at Normal Community. That's where I believe God put me. And so we're going to plant our flag right here, and we're going to come up to the volleyball games. We're going to come up to the school play. We're going to invest in the kids here at Normal Community. The basketball guys are going to be obviously a huge investment, but we just decided this is where we're at. We're 4 minutes from the school, and we're going to be up here a lot, and basketball is going to be a big part of that. And so that, you're right. I mean, those moments of being low, we just kind of decided this is what we're going to go for. And, nothing else has ever come along. This is where God has planted me for, like I said, 25 years as the head coach. And I'm proud to be an Ironman and love the kids I've been around.
Yeah, I think that there's an old sign. I can remember the sign. I can't remember where it was. It was somebody's house. I knew that they had a sign, and it was on their door leaving out that it said, "You're now entering the mission field." Right? Have you heard seen of that before? Like, and I love that idea of yours that you don't have to. And those missionaries that go and do things like your brother, that's phenomenal, and that's like life threatening and scary. I get it, but it's a lot of purpose in your life to know that you're heading into not just a job, but a place that you're sharing the message and changing lives. And how is it what's that look like in practicality? How do you, like, what are the programs that you do, or do you have some that you do?
Yeah, well, some things we do at school. I'm the sponsor of the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club. We meet on Thursday mornings, and that's been fun doing that. But honestly, it's spent a lot of time up here. We came up to the volleyball game, and then kind of in the hallways, kids in the hallways. So I really enjoyed being around. Normal Community is a really unique school. It's 60% white, about 14% black, 10% Hispanic, and 10% Asian, mostly Indian. And so I walk around these hallways. I grew up in Morton, Illinois, which had no diversity, and I'm walking these hallways, and it's very diverse. And so it's a really unique, fun place to be at. And there's students I have. It's such a big school of 2,200. They don't even know I'm the basketball coach. Like they are in the music department, or they're working, and I care about those kids too. And so it's fun to be up here and do those things. And like I said, I'm focusing on these kids, but then the 15 guys, the basketball guys, those are the ones we're going to spend a lot of time at open gyms and on the bus and doing those things too.
Yeah, it's like what your wife said. It's like, hey, you got these kids walking around there like they don't care if you had a really good team last year. At all.
Yeah. We went to the state championship game in Champaign, and a couple of my students, their first game they ever came to was the Final Four games in Champaign. They've been here for 3 years. They never went to a game in our gym, and they came out and said, that was a lot of fun. It was, your first game's in Champaign at the state tournament. There was a zoo there. It was so awesome. But so I, like I said, when we talk about our purpose and what we're doing, it's the basketball guys are kind of the main ones because you spend the most time with them, but there's these other students that we're dealing with too, that we're trying to reach and help and be a part of their lives.
Well, yeah, and if you walk around all basketball season in a bad mood or stressed or whatever, you really miss that opportunity.
Yeah,
right.
There's a lot of great kids, and I some people who've been in my room. I have a co-taught teacher. Sometimes she said I kind of teach the class like a coach, like I'm coaching the class we're doing history, but I come at it with a coach's perspective, and so. That's the other thing about coaches. I mean, I want to be a good teacher in the classroom. I don't want to just be a basketball coach. I don't want people to think that I'm here just to coach basketball. I want to deal with the 150 students that are in my room. So there's a lot going on. It's busy. It's tiring. We're a couple of weeks into the school year. You kind of forget. You come off a fun summer, and now we're back at the grind. But I really feel like, Matt, when I walk into the building, when I'm heading to school, I have a short 4-minute drive. I'm going where I'm supposed to go, and I'm ready to go. I'm excited about being in the building.
Oh, I mean, you want to talk about what you wanted for your life and getting what you get out of your life. Like there's no better feeling to figure out I'm doing what I want to do. I'm what I should be doing. Right. Yeah, because I do a lot of professional development with coaches and teachers, and it's a tough profession. Like there's a lot of negatives.
Yeah. And coming out of COVID was horrible. I mean, at our school, we were pretty shut down, and then we were half days, and it was not fun. It was hard. We really had to look hard to be positive and do things, and it's not an easy profession. And younger coaches, I know it's not easy, especially when you're just getting into the teaching profession. You're busy there, and then you're also trying to help with your young kids, and it's tough. But I feel like it's worth it.
One of the things that you mentioned that I want to come back to, you really hit on the fact that you mentioned that you used to be a very sarcastic coach, and I think that's worth coming back to, because one of the things, because I'm a quick-witted, funny guy, and sarcasm is a easy way to bring that out, and I, in some coaching that I've done lately, and some books that I've read about the problem with sarcasm, and it feels fun, but it's an opportunity for the giver, the person using sarcasm, to add these little jabs and let them know that I think I'm better than you, right? And we think it's harmless and it's fun, and I think that it's not. And I'd love for you to speak on that, on why is that something you brought up so much? Because I agree with you. I'm just trying to get your take on it.
One of the coaches on my staff, Matt Schweinberg, is a former player, and he will tell the guys all the time, he goes, you guys don't, he was yelling and he was saying so much more when he was coaching me. But I like how you said that you read books too, and some books that I've looked at, Tony Dungy, anything by Tony Dungy. I read some Tom Osborne. My wife's maiden name is Osborne. They're from Nebraska. Her dad's my father-in-law's a big Nebraska football fan. They're not related to Tom Osborne, but I watched a lot of Tom Osborne and Tony Dungy. I just love the way they handle themselves. Tony Bennett right now in Virginia. I love how they do that. And I just think sarcasm, like you said, sometimes sarcasm during the game, it's to make the coach feel like, hey, look, my player messed up. It wasn't me. It was my player. And so I don't want to do that, and I'm not always perfect on that. But in practice, sarcasm is a terrible teaching method because the students don't get it. The player doesn't always understand that it's being sarcastic, and they're trying to understand what you're saying. And so through some books, and there's a book called Confessions of a Coach, or it was by lacrosse female coach. It was a great book about just being more straightforward and just say what you want to do, and what are the one or two things you want them to do right now to get better in practice or things like that. I would say a lot of things like, don't you want to win? And, in a real sarcastic voice, or, just stuff like that would just, well, yeah, I want to win. Well, then why, it never led to anything positive. It led to back talk. It led to, smart aleck responses. And so I really tried to get better at that, about saying of those kind of things.
Yeah, I picked up on it a lot. There's a book out there by a guy named John Gottman, and it's actually a marriage book that they now apply to teams, and I do it with athletic teams. And he's got these 4 horsemen, and these are 4 things. It's of course it's a biblical reference, but 4 things that are signs of a marriage or a team falling apart. And I call them the team cancers. And one of them is contempt, right? How we are contemptuous to one another. And he makes a real big point that sarcasm is a very thinly veiled attempt at contempt. You're letting them know, I'm not happy with you. I don't think you're really caring. And when you just keep that up, it starts to break down a relationship. And we're in the business as coaches to build relationships. And if you use that constant sarcasm, you're chipping away at that relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And I still fight it. I mean, I fight the sarcasm. I mean, I want to be a smart aleck at times. But just the other day, we had our first open gym up here, and we had it in the morning, and we had a freshman show up, and I didn't recognize the young man that came in. And he came into the gym, and I said, hey, hey, who are you? You know, I don't know you. And he kind of brushed me off, and he just kept walking. I felt like saying, you know, hey, I guess you don't want to be here. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I'm getting older now, and I just stepped back and I didn't say anything, and I just waited. And then about 20 minutes later, I went back to talk to him, and we had a great conversation. The freshman walks in the gym. He's trying to figure out what's going on. He doesn't even know where the ball rack's at. He was nervous coming in, and so I thought, I'm not going to, you know, get on him right now, you know. And so we had a good conversation, great conversation with this guy. And so he, you know, I feel good about him. And if I'd have been sarcastic, it would have started off on a bad note. So I'm glad with that.
Well, and the other opportunity was, or the other way that story goes, is that his first interaction with you is you with a sarcastic comment.
Right.
And that's, that can change. It changes the whole dynamic.
It does. The conversation I had with him 20 minutes later was 100% different. I mean, he played a few games. He's got some shots in, and we talked. And I asked him we talked about where he went to junior high and his experience. And as I walked around, like, all right, you know, he's going to probably play on the freshman team. We'll go from there. And that's why I got a little bit better at that than my first initial proud, sarcastic, don't you know who I am kind of a thing.
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching.
So let's talk a little bit about, I know that, you know, season hasn't started yet. You're working on it, but the kids are in school. And I want to talk about just a little bit of how all of this bleeds into your coaching philosophy and what I talk about, which is the mental toughness. And I always ask that question, what's mental toughness to you? And I want to hear your thoughts on what is mental toughness? How do you pick it up on a kid, and how do you develop it in a kid?
Yeah, a couple of things. To me, mental toughness to me is that you're having a bad game and you're still being positive and you're helping your teammates. You're finding other ways to win when you're not shooting well in basketball. A mental toughness story that comes to mind, this is who this player is. We had a player named Dexter Niekamp on our team last year. He was the all-state football linebacker. He was a starter on the basketball team, and he's a starter on the baseball team. A school our size, that has rarely happened. A 3-sport starter star. He's now at Illinois State. He's going to play football there. I think he's going to redshirt, but he's going to have a great career there. But this is why I thought mental toughness. Like a little example about it. He was number 23 on our team as a junior, and then we had to take the team picture his senior year while he was still playing football. So I gave all the uniforms out, and I realized, I forgot to get Dexter's number. Someone else took 23. And Dexter came in real quick in the morning to take the team picture, and we had number 22. And I said, "Hey, Dex, I forgot. Do you want me to get 23?" He goes, "I don't care what number it is. Just give me 22. I don't care my number. I'm just here to play ball when it's time to play ball." And to me, that's mental toughness. He didn't care about what number he has. He didn't care what what he looked like, what his hair looked like, or anything. He was just there to try to help the team win. And so that's why he's one of the all-time great Ironman. I mean, the other person, you interviewed Allie Ince, who's a world-class 800, 400, and she's going to Oregon as a freshman to run. If you'd see her in the hallways here, she was just doing what she was supposed to do, and she was kind and cared about other people and just got to class. She was not walking the hallways like a future D1 Oregon track star. Gatorade Player of the Year as a junior, there's a banner in the gym. You would never know that. So mental toughness to me sometimes too is You're just doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, and you're not worried about the other things.
Yeah, regardless, right? Regardless if it's and a lot of times people think that mental toughness is, well, they're able to do these things when things aren't going their way, but it's also doing it even when things are going your well. And it's like, okay, so I'm doing really well. Why would I'm not going to change what I'm doing. I know what I need to do to progress and get better, regardless of what's going on around.
Yeah,
me.
like the player Dexter Niekamp, he is going to play hard regardless. And then one game during the school year or during our last season, I kind of left him out in the fourth quarter, and when we lost. And after the game, I texted him later that night. I was like, "Hey, I'm my bad for keeping you out the last 4 minutes." And he's like, "Coach, whatever whatever you need to do. And if you thought that was the right thing, I'm fine with that." And to have a mental toughness is sometimes that there's no drama. You are the coach can count on you to be there all the time. And good or bad, you're going to be the same way, and just keep playing hard and doing the right things. And so, it's like the Tim Duncan stories. When you hear about Tim Duncan on the Spurs, that he just was a great teammate and didn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time, and whatever was the team needed. That's mental toughness.
Yeah, it is. What about developing it? And because you've given me some good examples of athletes that have it, but I'm sure you've had plenty that don't have it, right?
Yeah, and you talk a lot. Those are great one-on-one conversations too. After games, after practices, sometimes during practices, about how are you handling as a player, how you handling this situation, and so there's a lot of teachable moments. And Matt, sometimes there's so many other forces that are around student athletes that get in the way of these things, that make it hard for them to focus on the main thing, keeping the main thing. And so I understand that too. And that gets back a little bit about grinding it out. Like, hey, we're not where we're at on November 15th, and we're not December 15th. Hopefully we're better. And then we want to just keep moving forward and patiently work with our guys and understand they're teenage boys. They're going to do silly things sometimes, dumb things, and say dumb things. And we're just going to keep working on it. We're going to hold them accountable. But we're in this together. And so I think those are the teachable moments when things aren't going so well. Not to, coaches need that, and you know this too. You talk about this. We need to be mentally tough too. When a call doesn't go against us, or something doesn't go, we need to be mentally tough, which rubs off on them.
It is a huge pet peeve of mine when I'm talking to coaches and they're talking about how their players, these kids are soft and they're doing this or whatever. And then I watch them on the sidelines, like throwing their jacket, throwing the water bottles. And I'm not saying I've never done that. And I'm sure you have to, I get it, but it's like, you just need to turn the looking glass on you, buddy, because I'm telling you you're acting in your version like they are. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I told you that some of my assistant coaches have been around. I have a really experienced staff, and we've been together a long time, and we grew up a little bit together coaching, and we kind of found earlier on too, when we're yelling and losing our cool with the refs, all of a sudden our guys are acting like morons. And I'm very thankful. Normal community, the principal and athletic directors I've worked for, they have never talked about wins and losses. What they don't want is the students, the basketball guys act terrible in the hallway. They don't want them to be misbehaving and expect to get away with things. They don't want them to act out on the court. And so the only few comments I've ever had from a principal is about, hey, I just want to let you know one of your students, one of your basketball guys is doing this. And we don't want that to represent our school. They've never talked wins and losses. And so that helps, too, when you have from the top of what they care about. And so I really think that's important we know, you talk about this all the time, but we have to be mentally tough. And mentally tough is that things aren't going our way, and we did lose by 20 tonight. And we can be upset for a little bit, but we're going to get up the next day, and it's a new morning, and let's get going.
Well, and that's another thing that sometimes coaches do. If you're in a situation where you have an administration who does a really good job of saying, hey, it's not about wins and losses, and we're not going to put that pressure on you. We just want you to, do a good job with the guys or the gals. And then you turn around and put the pressure on the kids to get the wins, right? You're not giving them the same leeway that your bosses and your higher ups are giving you, which allows you to work with such, freedom.
Right.
And I think you have to do the same thing with your kids.
Yeah, you do. It's like, the whole team approach at a school. And so those are those are great life lessons too. And to talk to your guys about, hey, I wanted to yell at the ref. Like we did get one technical foul last year for dunking, hanging on the rim. And I actually was pretty upset about it because there was a guy underneath our player. And so I was starting to get mad, and we were all, the coaches were mad, and the guys were just like, it's, we're going to be okay because we're going to be calm and we're just going to keep going. And I thought that's where you wanted to, everyone's kind of working together, thinking together. But I really felt like over the years, not yelling at the refs, not yelling at the players too much. And I'm going to get on them at times, especially on defense. I mean, we want to play great man-to-man defense, but
yeah. And I think that's where the conversation falls apart, that we lose some people and things like that, because they're like, well, I got to stay on my guys, stay on my gals. I got to keep working. And you can be accountable. You can have positive accountability. You can, it doesn't have to be negative. Now that you can still have consequences, right? But you can even do that positively.
Right. I think that the bench is a great teacher, the great Bobby Knight quote too, but also it's how you use it too. And so I've gotten better when guys are taken out, just to talk to them, or assistant coach say something to them, because like I said, earlier career, really getting on them or saying something. And I want it to be, I sometimes say at my parent meetings, if you see me really upset on the sideline at your son, it's because it's something we really worked on, that we've gone over, that is an expectation that we're really trying to do, that they just weren't mentally into it. And so, those are great teachers too for kids to have. And you want them to play hard and try their best. And then sometimes you got to take them out when they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. So what are the Coach Witzig, like, minimum expectations?
Well, we're kind of a defense oriented program, and we play man-to-man defense. And last year we pressed a lot because we had some guys who could really get up and down. But I really get upset when the defense, they're not trying on, the defense rotation's bad. Or, like I said, things we work on in practice we didn't do, we're not doing things we did to prepare for the game. And so those are things that really bother me on that. And taking a bad shot, because it's a really form of selfishness. You take a shot, a me shot instead of a team shot. And I've been lucky to have a bunch of 6'9" guys. So let's not be dumb. Let's look in there first and throw it to the tallest guys on the floor. And if they kick it back out or they're, it's a good shot, you're wide open, shoot it. But if not, we got to throw it where it needs to go. So we have another 6'9" guy this year that you better be getting the ball too.
Yeah, but those 6'9" guys are good at cleaning up messes too.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Yeah, and if it's you can win a lot of high school basketball games if you don't give up layups, and you can get layups. You just beat teams on the layup things.
Yeah, I think all that stuff is good. I love the idea of, the idea of the bench is the best teacher, is that can go both ways. I loved what you said about how we use it to bring them out and talk to them what they do. I think that, I'm not Bobby Knight. Well, you're not like Bobby Knight, the great Bobby Knight, but I think he did it differently, right? I think some guys do it differently. It's like, hey, you're not doing the right thing. I'm just going to put you there until you figure it out. And I think that's a different mindset.
Yeah. Bobby Knight is such a unique person
to absolutely
think about, because his coaching booklets and his VCR tapes that he had back in the day and things he said is so genius. I think he's a great example to think about though too. To be really great at being a basketball coach, but then being really bad on how to handle officials and when things don't go your way. And it really tarnished his image. I mean, one of the great basketball minds ever. He would have been a great general in the military, all those things, but you can't treat people like that. Right. And so those are great lessons. That's why I love the Tony Dungy, Tom Osborne, Tony Bennett kind of guys who are just steady and solid. Tony Bennett, he loses the first round game one year, and he answers questions like a man, mentally tough. He just answers the questions. He wins the national championship. He's not acting like he's the greatest thing in the world. He's just very humble, and those kind of examples are just great, and we need those.
Yeah, and it's one of the things you had mentioned on what you wanted to talk about and stuff, and you had a phrase in there that I like, where you just don't panic and just keep going forward, and that's hard to do sometimes. And
when you work with young, you work with high schoolers, they're gonna have ups and downs. And there's always a player we talk about. We had, it's not 15 years ago, but he was a senior and he was a good post player, but he had a horrible first half. he was bad, missing layups and things like that. And I just remember we just kind of kept going with him, and we had some good conversation with him in the coach's office, and his second half was incredible, and it just changed our whole season that year. And I thought, looking back on it, he should have been starting, he should have been playing. He was not playing well, and we just kind of kept with him and took him out when he needed to come out, got on him when we needed to get on him, but just stuck with him because we knew what he could do. And those are kind of things I think players really respect in the end too. And so just keep going because high schoolers change from November to March. They've changed a lot. And then from March, from 1 year to November of the next year, they're going to grow and mature a lot.
Yeah.
And those are things we just got. That's why being a coach, you almost have to be, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck is a great book.
It's just,
those books about how to help teach and how to think about things, help your help programs. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's right there on purpose, because I use it. I reference it so many times with things because it's such a useful. And if you haven't read it, I'm going to throw that out there. It should be. I think every coach should read. And it's not a coaching book, right? It's not about. I mean, she has some sports examples, but it's the most useful skill that I think a coach, a player, if anybody can have, is to have a growth mindset and just know that that's how you don't panic, right? You have the growth mindset,
right? In the book, Grit goes along with that too.
Same way.
It's not a basketball coaching book, but it does have some athletic references, but it has references about students who are coming from tough situations who show grit. So how do we teach grit? And that's what we want to do, because we want them when they're 35-year-old men and the car breaks down and the baby's sick and they have to do things for their family, that they're going to be able to grit and grind through that and keep going. And so as we're trying to build up men. Have you ever read Joe Ehrman books?
I have.
Joe Ehrman. Yeah, that's another good one to look up. The former Baltimore Colts football player from the 70s, and he just has great ideas about how to coach and help with life. And he went through things. They're great stories.
Well, I think as a high school coach, you're working with unfinished products, right? And we have to see it that way. And I think that as sports go earlier and earlier and earlier that we care about, right? We're watching what junior high kids do and what even 5th, 6th graders would do. Like, I hesitate to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't. Like the end result does not matter at all, because it's you would almost rather have them be losing at that age, because if you can foster that growth mindset, you take those losses and turn them into things that, like we talked about earlier, that if you're just winning everything early because you're bigger, faster, stronger, it's not a good recipe for long-term success.
Yeah, I really wish, youth sports is a whole nother. I know. Because I would love if all my future players would be playing 3-on-3 as 5th and 6th graders in their driveway or the park instead of traveling all over the country. I would love that. That would help my program if they were playing 3-on-3 in a park right now instead of traveling somewhere. So,
and it's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper, and everyone would be happier because the parents aren't stressed out by driving all over the place, and it would really help our whole youth system. It needs to get kind of regroup again. It's funny, you mentioned that. My wife and I, we have 4 kids. We've never done the travel things. Part of it is there's years we couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is we couldn't we couldn't go with one of them. We didn't want to, where I'd go with one of them to a sporting thing and she's at home with the other ones. And I think it's really been good for our family. We've spent more time together in the summer. We've done more playground stuff, or go to the gym and roll out the balls and play. And that kind of helped my coaching career too. Just because we weren't flying all over the place following our kids.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's like you said, it's a whole nother longer conversation for a different time, but it's, you're still working with, at high school athletes, you're still working with unfinished products that you need to see it that way, and they need that growth mindset for the rest of their life. I think it's useful. Right.
And they need it because second hour they're in English class and they have to write a paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of a basketball coach is I've read the book Animal Farm Coach because that's what they read at our school. I read it. And I can't believe that. Like in December before final exams, I'm on phones with some guys and we're talking about the Animal Farm, trying to help them get ready for their tests and stuff. And so I've learned, it's just a nonstop unique thing to coach high school students, because you're also reading Animal Farm to help them in their English class, and end up having some really funny conversations about that book. So.
Yeah, coaching the high school kids is so much opportunity and so much responsibility too. Like you really change kids. You can change the trajectory of a kid's life, and that's what's cool about it, and that's also scary about it.
Yeah, it is, and that's why, trying to have a great basketball program and trying to win is great, because that's also life lessons. We're trying to do something great, and we may fall up short, or we may do really well. But it's the understanding that this leads to something else. And so we've all, like you said, we're in the stands watching other coaches and things like that. And sometimes you see them just belittling kids or just mad or they gave up. The coach gave up. And so you just see those things, and it's like, we need our coaches to be on it too, because this is what our students need.
Yeah. No. So earlier on, you talked about what you and your wife had. You talked about the conversation about what we wanted our life to look like. What do you still want things like? Are you still looking forward for your basketball program and what you're trying to accomplish? What does that look like?
Yeah, you kind of broke up a little bit. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, you broke up. Yeah.
So a little bit ago, we talked about how you and your wife talked about what you want your life to look like, right? Are you still doing that now for like your life or for your basketball program? Like, do you have a goal in mind that here's what we're trying to get to? Are you still applying that idea now, even though you're 32 years in?
Yeah, I'm coming down to the last 3 or 4 years of my teaching career too. So we're starting to have more conversations about what the future looks like. But we have a son who's married, and daughter who's almost out of college. So we're also at a different phase of life too than what we were back in those days when we were talking about that. We have 2 in high school that are soon to go to college. So I don't know. I hate to say, am I entering the grandparent stage? I mean, what stage am I heading into? Into the stage where I'm helping my son move into a house and do those things. So I want to finish really strong here at Normal Community. And so the other thing too is when you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, it makes you really think about each day. Mm. And so I'm gonna like last year we had a great team, and I remember thinking I'm coming down to the final 4 or 5. I don't know how long going to coach, but I'm going to enjoy this practice today. And we're getting on a bus and we're going up to play Bennett Academy, and this is going to be a great experience. And so I feel like 20 years ago we were talking about where we're going to plant our flag at Normal Community. Now we're starting to think about what the next phase is, but now it's more like every day just going to try to enjoy this and figure this out.
Which is great. A great mindset to have for anybody and anything to really enjoy what you've got and what you're doing.
I would love to know, being a coach and a teacher, what does that look like in a different field, or like State Farm's in our town? Like what does a coach look like in different areas? What are the skills I've learned from teaching and coaching? Mm-hmm. How would that help? And I don't know, maybe I'll never do that. Maybe I'll always be in a school, but it's just fun to think about too.
Yeah, no, it is. And I'm sure there's opportunities out there for it, because despite what you told me, it's some really good information here, Coach. It's good stuff. And I really enjoy the conversation. So
yeah, it was fun to talk about coaching. It's fun to talk about helping kids.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome. And I know you had, like I said, the people you've had on your interviews have been great. And I've learned a lot. And Kramer Soderbergh is one of my favorite podcasts that you had. I sent it to a bunch of my friends about what he was saying and how he was going about his business. And so you're doing a great job.
Yeah. No, I think of all the things that have stuck with me from a podcast, his idea of holy indifference is really one that has really stuck with me. And I really enjoy that.
I felt like he's on mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. He's on a mission, and I know he's a great basketball coach, and I know his dad is a great basketball coach. His dad is at Virginia. And so he comes from a great coaching tree and opportunities. And so when I heard him talk about, he's in Decatur, Illinois at Millikan High School or Millikan College. And that was really good for me to hear too.
Yeah. All right, Coach, last question for you. You know what's coming. What did I not ask you that I should have?
Yeah, I know. I love how you ask that question. Every time, I guess you asked pretty much what I kind of hoped you'd ask. I guess maybe the question you never asked. You never asked John Hughes any more John Hughes stuff. those who know him know he's a legend. Those, if you don't know him, he's a great guy. So
if you've got, I'm all for it. If what's your best John Hughes story? I mean, I feel it only caters to a really small audience here, but I don't care because I'll take it.
Yeah. I think what I really appreciate about him coming from a small school, and I've always been in big schools my whole career, and there is a difference. And he could not figure out when he first came here. We had 4 simple base on bounds plays. And we've now kind of changed those up, but we had 4 ones that I literally used for 20 years. And he said, there's no way those are going to work. He said, at my level, they would never let this work. The coaches that he had to deal with would never let it work. And so every time we scored on it, which was often, every coach would just kind of give him 5 or get on to him, and he could not figure it out. So I learned a lot about him, about just scouting, taking away things from other teams, not letting the other team score on the same play they've run 4 years old. It's not a funny story. There's funny stories you and I can tell.
It is. It is to me because I know I've coached in that league and I've had my son played in that league. I understand that there's a lot of difference between small school and old school and large school basketball, and it's fun to talk about those differences.
It really is, and we'll tell them, hey, we're going to use it, and we've used it on this team every year for 20 years, and we're going to get a bucket out of it. And he just can't figure out how that could ever happen. But there's things that happen in big school games that are unbelievable too. Like just
absolutely.
Yeah, we're getting dunked on, and we had no idea. It's just unbelievable. So
yeah, it is. Again, Coach, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been a great interview. I really appreciate it. Some really good stuff there for players, for coaches, for parents, everyone. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, Matt, you do a great job, and I appreciate the talking about the mentality with all the things going on, anxiousness and depression and things like that. We need to learn how to teach mental toughness. And so I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's the first idea, is that we can understand that it is something that can be developed. It's not. I think that's the first old school idea that needs to go away, is I think it used to be like, well, that kid's just soft. There's nothing we can do about it. I don't even want him on my team. Right.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're here for.
No, it's fine. And I'm going to add on, I know we're getting long here.
You're good.
But we actually, our coaches here, we have met, and we used to complain about no leaders. And I think you talked at our iClub before.
I did. Yeah.
And so that was how it started. That we're kids are soft. There's no leaders. And then finally, one of the coaches said, "Why are we teaching leadership?"
Yep.
And so that changed a lot of our coaches. We meet together, and I'm talking about the volleyball coach and the girls basketball coach, and all the soccer. We have a great group of coaches that we meet together, and I'm very fortunate. I really love the coaches I coach with of other sports in our building. We are pulling for each other. So, we had to figure out, we need to teach leadership.
Yeah.
Quit complaining about it and teach it.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to do that.
I think so too. It's that same idea of what we want it to look like. Well, if we want to develop leaders, what are you doing to develop them? Right. You need to develop them. So,
right.
So, I love that. It's great stuff. And, thanks, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for all you're doing.
Oh, you bet. Appreciate it.
Okay.
See ya.
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching.
There are two ideas there that really stick out to me from that interview. And those two ideas are intention and patience. And I've never really thought about putting those two words together. But when we think about those two words together, it's pretty powerful. So Dave talked a lot about developing his intention, what he wanted to do. And now he started the conversation with what he and his wife wanted his life to be like and how he wanted it. You know, he was looking at it from a mission field perspective through basketball, but he wanted his home base there to be normal community. But I think that definitely bleeds into how he wanted to operate in his coaching perspective and how he wanted to coach his team, which because of it would, right? If you're going to think about how you want your life to be with your family, your wife, the relationship, and how you want to be in your faith, of course, it's going to be affecting how you coach. So and of course, that part was really interesting, how that idea of intention and what he wanted his life to look like came from a story that it was obvious he didn't enjoy telling that story. It was a tough story for him, and he made a mistake and you know, kind of acted in a way that he felt some regret towards. And I give him kudos for telling that story, but then also a lot of kudos for identifying that as a turning point and realizing that, hey, this mistake I made and this way I acted is kind of using that as a launching pad or a starting point for how I want to be, right? And how I want to change and what I want my life to look like. And it reminded me so much of a coaching session and how a coaching session works, in the sense that when I start working with an individual or a team, we start with where you are and what you're not happy with and what you want to change. And we start that, you know, we say you're at point A. Well, at point A, he was the guy that left his baby daughter and his wife in the hospital to go coach a game because that was the most important thing to it, right? So that was point A. And he realized his point B needed to be somewhere else. And he realized that he wanted to be more family first and wanted his coaching to be his mission field, and his teaching and his job to be his mission field. And that's his point B, right? So he's got where he is to where he wants to be. And when you have that intention in your life and you have that, you make that internal decision, that personal decision to change something, it gives you a lot of guidance and a lot of focus. Things are never going to be perfect. You're never going to be this perfect line of progress. It's going to be ups and downs. But if you have that intention, then you have that North Star. You have that idea of, this is what I'm aiming for. This is what I want to be. And I can always be shooting for this. When you can combine that intention and that focus and knowing what you want out of your life and for yourself, and you can combine that with patience, well, that's how you get a guy that has had, you know, a career like he's had, right? The guy that left his, you know, kid in the hospital had never won a regional, and he realized, this is not what I want to be. And now he's won so many regionals and he's had so much success. And now he's a Hall of Fame coach. But he didn't do that by doing it the way he had always done it. He did it by changing and learning how to have that focus and have that patience. And I heard it in so many things he was talking about. He talked about the mindset, which is, you know, the Carol Dweck growth mindset, which is all about patience, right? It's about knowing, hey, I want to slowly progress every day and being okay with that. And I think a lot of times patience gets looked at the wrong way. People like, hey, if I'm too patient, then I'm not working hard enough and I'm not getting after it. I'm doing it. But patience over the long haul is going to beat somebody who is, you know, just burns out because they have to give everything they have all the time. It's that patience is useful for that long-term growth and that long-term progress and a long-term career as a coach. So I think it's just a great combination of two things, to have that intention and have that patience. Just so many things there. There are other things that we talked about, obviously, in that interview, but there's just so many things that I can always pick up. But those two things really stuck out to me. I say it all the time and I try to do it myself every day, every week, every month. What's my intention? And if you're not having intention and you don't know what you're shooting for, then you're just all over the place. You don't know where you're going to end up. If you have intention, you at least have something to guide yourself and be like, know where you are, where you're trying to be. And even if you fell short, you know what you didn't get. That's the importance with that intent, that intention. And then you couple that with patience, and it can help you, that mental health. It helps so much when you can understand, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not going to get there today. I'm only going to make progress today. And you don't worry about wins and losses. You worry about progress. You worry about growth and worrying about what you want to be. And I say it all the time that the best, just focusing on winning is not the best way to get wins. It's another way, and it's finding a different way to do it. But you have to focus on the progress. You have to focus on the little things you're doing, and you have to have that patience. And Coach Witzig is just a phenomenal example of that. And I wish him well. It was a great example for young coaches. And I know he's been there. He's coached for 32 years. So he's got a lot of wisdom looking back at stuff, but he made that decision to be intentional about what he wanted to do a long time ago, before he started racking up all these wins. So if you're a young coach, you could do that early now. What do I want my life to be like, and how do I need to start getting there, and how do I give myself some grace and patience in the journey to get there? And I think it's a great start. So if, young coach getting into this, start asking yourself those questions. Talk to your staff, talk to your significant other, talk to your administrators. What do I want it to look like? Get people on board with the idea. And if they're on board with it, they're probably going to have more patience with you as you grow towards that. So just some really good stuff. Remember, as I said before, continue to like, share, subscribe, and make sure to send me, if you have a good guest idea, send me a note about somebody who'd be a good guest, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, or whatever. I'll talk to. I love talking to anybody on this topic. So if you have a guest, and if you have any need for any of my services, like I talked about, the individual coaching, the team coaching, the professional development that I do with either educators or coaches, please hit me up. I want to come in and keep this business going and keep it growing and doing what I can there. So I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And as always, this has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. And always remember to forge your mettle.